take your impulse responses from sounding like this to this. Alright, what's up everyone? This is the third time I'm recording this. It's Goose, and today we're going to go over this little trick that I've been using to get my IRs to sound a little bit more real to my ears. So recently I've been playing through my cabinets behind me, so I have a Marshall cabinet there. I have this orange Super Crush cabinet here. Basically in the room, I feel like the cabinets have a certain sort of grind and texture to them that none of the IRs that I've tried have ever felt correct with. That none of the IRs that I've ever tried I kind of felt like when I'm playing through them. And I've tried IRs from York Audio, from Bogren Digital, from Ownhammer, and for the vast majority of my time I'm playing through my in-ear monitors, or my Sennheiser headphones here, or my studio monitors as well. And so for the longest time, I've been thinking, how can I get an IR to sound more real and like it's in the room that I'm playing in? Before we move on though, if you like what you see on this channel, please consider hitting subscribe and like. Any interaction with this channel really helps and I very much appreciate it. Alright, on the topic of IRs, let's go over what an impulse response actually is though. An impulse response is actually a really short wave file, and it captures a microphone recording speakers in a cabinet at a specific point in the space of the cabinet. And so when you buy an IR pack, you get a bunch of these files, which is basically just different microphones placed at different positions around the speaker cabinet to get a specific tone for that impulse response. And so sometimes you need to blend multiple impulse responses together to get a good tone out of the packs that you buy. Other times they provide mixes that also work really well. And a lot of these mixes are better for kind of the recording, the production side of things. They sound really good in a mix, but in my opinion, sometimes playing through them doesn't feel quite right. And I've tried using kind of a room IR with a more direct center of cone IR and blending the two to try to get sort of a more realistic feel. And really it was when I started using the Fractal FM9 that I started to mess around with the air feature in the modeler. And that really opened up kind of how to make IRs sound more real. So we're going to go over using that. We're also going to go over the HX Stomp, as well as any other modeler that lets you do branching pads in your signal chain. Alright, so this is the FM9, and my chain is pretty simple right now. Basically, there is this overdrive, which is a FET preamp, going into a Friedman amp model, and I have a gate after the cab block. And this is the cab block. The IR that I'm using is the York Audio Mesa 412 oversized, mic'd with the Bayer M160, and it is center of the cone, I believe. And so basically that's just the mic right at the center of the cone. So with the room setting that I was mentioned earlier at 0, and just basically the cab, this IR by default, this is what it sounds like. And so I think it sounds pretty good. I think it would really work in a mix as well, but I think it's just kind of missing something. And so let's take this air. I actually prefer at around 7. It sounds, in my opinion, more like my cabinets in the room at this setting. You spam call. This air setting is basically taking the dry amp signal without a cabinet and blending it in with your IR signal. And we're going to refer to it as the dry signal, basically the uncabinet version of the signal. So if you bypass the cabinet, this is what it sounds like without an IR. Sounds terrible, right? But if you blend it in with your IR, because in a room, I feel like I hear that sort of raw grind a bit better than when I'm just using an IR with nothing blended to it. And so let's go over the settings specifically though. The air setting is just a percentage of blend, but the frequency is actually really important. If you don't roll off the high end, you get that high end fizz that you get with that dry signal, and it's not very pleasant. It just doesn't sound very good. When you roll that down to about 6 kilohertz, which is what I usually do, it sounds a lot better. Again, with the air down. And then at 7%. And so blending in that dry signal really does give it a little bit more life. Be careful with the blend though. If you go too high, like if we just do like a 50% here, it just doesn't sound very good. It starts to sound really boxy. All right, so let's try this with other modelers as well. All right, so here's the HX Stomp. We have the same kind of amp and overdrive setup. The overdrive I'm using is the Pillars, which is the Earthquaker Devices Plumes. And I have it at mode 2, which is kind of a clean op-amp boost. The amp is also a Friedman, the same as I used in the FM9, and I have a noise gate at the end. The IR is the same IR, the York Audio Mesa 412 oversize with the M160. And with just the IR right now, I have this split here, but we're just going to focus on the IR, so the route for that split is going to go 100% to the IR. And this is what it sounds like. And so I think that sounds pretty good. Basically sounds like the IR that I loaded into the FM9 as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this mix here, which actually does mix in that dry signal without the cabinet. We're going to put it at 80% right now. And I think that's about the sweet spot for this. You can hear it adds that life into the sound. If you go too far, however, just like with the Fractal, you can get it to sound kind of nasty. So at a 50% mix, I actually don't think it sounds very good. There's too much of that like fizz from the dry signal. I will say that the HX Stomp does already roll off the signal at 0% mix. Sounds like there's like a roll off on the high end and the low end. It's not quite as raw sounding as the FM9. I think that's actually really cool that they do that for you. And I think 80% mix just sounds really good. And so it's really cool that the HX Stomp gives you that option just kind of from the get-go. But you can also achieve this if the mix option didn't exist for your specific modeler. We're going to use the HX Stomp again, but basically you're going to create a branching path. One is going to have the IR of your choice, and the other is going to have just an EQ. And in that EQ block, you're just going to be basically adding a high cut to it. On the HX Stomp specifically, I think it high cuts a little bit better around 10. And we're going to route the splitter here to even split. And usually with the blocks, you can adjust the volume. If you can't do that with the blocks individually in your modeler, you might want to play with the split a little bit here. I'm going to set the IR to 100% mix here. And this EQ block is going to act as that dry signal mix. Without the high cut, it doesn't sound very good. You hear too much of that dry signal. So we're going to pull it down to about 10. Let's pull it down to around 6, which is where I had it for the FM9. And I would suggest that you play around with a balance of this high cut as well as the level here to kind of get a preferred tone. And so yeah, blending the dry signal with the IR, I think actually provides a really good option at making the amp model in your modeler feel a lot more real. And honestly, the reason why I think this is because when you are playing through an IR, through your earphones or headphones or studio monitors, technically speaking, those headphones, studio monitors, all have their own FR, their own frequency responses as well. As much as marketing would like you to believe that certain in-ears, certain headphones, whatever, are flat frequency, most of these headphones have some kind of dip or spike somewhere in their frequency response. And studio monitors require you to have a perfectly treated room as well to get them to sound flat. Maybe I should make a video about the earphones and the headphones that I would recommend for guitarists, but really, it's a lot of marketing BS when they tell you that the headphones are flat. So think about what an IR is. It's basically a capture of a speaker cabinet in a room, and that room has an effect on the tone of the guitar as well as the placement of the microphone. The effect of the space between the inside of your ear and the drivers inside of your earphone and headphones is still going to cause some coloration to your sound. It's almost like you're listening to double the IR. So blending in some of that dry signal can help make your playing when you're playing through an amp sim just feel that much more real, in my opinion. And if you do it in moderation and with very small increments, I think you could also get a nice listenable tone for anyone who's just listening too. So yeah, I hope this helps people with trying to get the most out of your IRs. I think that IRs are really close, don't get me wrong. I'm just glad I found the setting in Fractal, and I will be using this with my other modelers moving forward. That's going to do it for me today. Again, hit like and subscribe if you like the content you're seeing here, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Later!